the next one. Serum B12 can be used to monitor treatment. One of the most common problems is that people have insufficient injections to feel well. Often the serum B12 value is used to ascertain frequency-based treatment upon, but there's no correlation between the B12 value and the symptoms experienced by patients. During injections, the transcobalamin and haptocorrin, the transport protein, fully saturated with B12. So the serum and active B12 values cannot be used to ascertain effective treatment. The levels rise regardless of therapeutic effectiveness. Some patients can have bi-monthly maintenance dosage straight after loading dose, or even every 3 months in some cases. However, a large number of patients experience recurring problems on bi-monthly injections. Large groups of people need much more B12, and symptoms should be used as a guideline and not the blood values. Everyone is different, and every individual needs an individual amount of B12. Also, many physicians are afraid of an overdose. We hear this all the time too, that the level gets high and then they say, yeah, but it's toxic in high dose, so you should stop treatment. We've tried to research this a bit, and in the past 60 years, harmful effects have never been shown from an overdose. No, not a single case could be found in medical literature. After an injection, the level rises quickly far above the upper reference level, followed by slow decrease. Apparently, the underlying thought is that it is necessary to keep the value between reference values. But the blood rises regardless of the effectiveness, as I mentioned before. The treatment guidelines in Holland give no reference to serum values or a danger of overdosing. This is further underlined by the advice to inject twice a week with obvious neurological problems for up to 2 years if necessary. Unfortunately, this is not often followed. A high serum B12 value does not mean symptoms are treated sufficiently. This presumption can have damaging effects for patients with neurological problems, which can become irreversible with insufficient treatment. It could be that the concern for possible overdose is caused by the knowledge that some life-threatening disease can be accompanied by a strong increase in B12 blood levels, sometimes to even 30 times the upper level. Their elevated B12 values are therefore always cause for further testing before injections. But irreversibly cannot be said, of course, that elevated levels after injections can lead to serious disease. The treatment with B12 injections is not only completely safe, but fortunately very effective. With the right treatment, patients can recover completely. Starting straight. No. All right. This one. 65% of respondents noticed improvement within 15 injections and 35% even within 5. But what we also found, which I thought was shocking, that only 4% considers himself or herself fully recovered after a year of treatment. And half the patients consider themselves to a large degree recovered. I hope that with more treatment this might improve some more, but it's and 25% still has quite severe fatigue. But then again, 60% responded that their treatment is sufficient, which is also, it's good to hear that some are going well. As it is often, my B12 deficiency is often misdiagnosed as depression, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, iron deficiency anemia, MS, hypochondria. Patients have often been to the doctor many times, visited multiple doctors, have numerous tests done before B12 is ever found. It's costing society millions of euros every year, patients years of unnecessary suffering, misdiagnosis with the accompanying stress, and most of all the risk of permanent neurological damage. Considering 7 in 10 patients have neurological symptoms, which can become permanent, it's clear the problem is huge. If we could at least correct these misconceptions, we would be a lot closer to an earlier and better diagnosis, better treatment, and save many people from unnecessary suffering and save millions of euros and pounds, which is everything to do about this day, about money. These are the most important conclusions from our survey. I am working on translating the whole thing into English, but it takes some time. I've translated 3 articles of mine in English now, which are on our website. I'll go back to the first one. That one. It takes some time, but as I progress, I translate more, I will put them all up, and also all the survey results I will put up there for you to see. I hope in future we can work more together, all countries together, because there are not many like the PS or my foundation in the world. I've looked. But I hope that when we work more together, we can get this stopped earlier and save many people from this permanent damage, which is completely unnecessary. It's such an easy way to fix it, such an effective, cheap treatment in many patients. So we hope that working harder, we can stop it.
Thank you, Petra. Petra's become an internet sensation, by the way. They're all tweeting there and saying that Dutch woman is fantastic. So, do you have any questions for Petra? You've heard it all before, haven't you?
Yep.
It's the
It's the same
thing.
story.
Same story. Yes.
Do you find that many people in Holland take things into their own hand? And
Yes.
can you buy things at the pharmacy in
No,
Holland?
no. It's the same as here. It's B12 is on prescription, but it's you can buy it without prescription in Belgium and Germany, which is very close. And in Germany, you can buy the Hydroxocobalamin over the counter at any pharmacist.
You can in Holland too,
And you can now order methyl and adenosylcobalamin from a pharmacy outside Munich. They send it to you in the post.
So what's its name?
It's Arnica. But I put the information is on the PAS form. I put it on there. So it's somewhere on the form, the information is where you can buy it.
Yeah, it's that you use Doodles translated and don't you think?
No, I put it on the PAS, so it's in English.
Is it
Yes,
English?
Yeah.
But at least in Germany you can go into a pharmacy and buy
Hydroxocobalamin.
Pharmacokobalamin or Hydroxocobalamin.
Yes.
You can't do that here.
No. You can buy it, and in Belgium you can buy Ciano everywhere. Just,
And there are a couple of Italian sites where you
Yes.
can buy methyl if you want.
yes, but on prescription only.
Yeah,
In
that's
Italy.
the doctors-
In Italy you need
doctors
prescription,
will-
yes. But they can send it to you, specifically made in subcutaneous, if you want.
Yeah.
Wilhelmina?
You can buy methylcobalamin on Amazon easily.
Yes.
That's cyanocobalamin that came from Belarus. I wouldn't advise that anybody buys anything from the internet because I don't know what's in there. Okay, there's loads of other stuff as well. There's patches that you stick behind your ear, but none of these have been evaluated. You see, and it's not simply about raising B12 levels. We know that's not the case.
No.
There's something else happening. But there we go. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Petra, for making the journey from the Netherlands. Would you like to take a quick comfort break, or do you want to go straight on to the next speaker? Speaker?
Straight on.
Go straight on.
Straight on.
No rest for you, Allison. Okay, our next speaker then is going to talk about a subject close to our hearts that you've already heard lots of today. Methylcobalamin versus hydroxocobalamin. Remember, if you are being prescribed hydroxocobalamin, make sure that you're taking some folic acid, because you need the methylfolate from folic acid to convert to methylcobalamin. It's important. That's what the forum is saying all the time. So Allison is from Oxford. She has her own research company, and she's going to talk to us about methyl and hydroxo. There we go.
I'm a clinical pharmacologist and a medical researcher at the University of Oxford, and I also have my own research company. So in latter months we've been devoted more to B12 research. Very pleased to be here. Thank you very much to Martin for organising this, and thank you all for coming today. It's been eye-opening for me as well as just being a pleasure to be here. I'm also a sufferer. It only took 33 years to diagnose. However, I know there are worse people that are suffering. I don't know if any of you have seen these brilliant posters, have you? This is in Life magazine in the United States. This is 1936. It looks like, this is a science report. This looks like a breakthrough in 1936. After this, there were posters in GP's office all over North America, Canada and the United States. This man was born in 1936. This is 2010 in the JR. This is, I also volunteer as a patient advocate, and actually I should say my husband volunteers me. I find, oh, you must call so-and-so. They really need your help. And this man was having problems with his GP. I think it was a heart reason. He was prescribed statins, which he didn't want to take, and I'm famously against medication with statins. So my husband volunteered my services, and this chap ended up in the JR. He was born in 1936, actually in London, and his family moved to North America. And he's been hospitalized regularly ever since. In 1951 was his first hospitalization when he was 15. And that year is when this Time magazine article was published, Progress Against Anemia. Now, Martin has written an amazing book. Maybe many of us have read it, The Forgotten Disease. I'm not sure that it is now forgotten. This man is proof that maybe it was never on their radar. And we definitely are all working hard to bring it to the forefront of our clinicians. So we know that by 1951, they already had a treatment. In 1936, they had a treatment, and they called it a crystalline vitamin B12. So there are many types of suffering, as I'm sure all of you have your own personal stories. This chap was in a car accident in the 1970s, maybe through ataxia, who knows, with his twin brother. They were both hospitalized, it took a year, this was in London, to build his body up, to repair the bones, to just repair his body. A year in an NHS hospital. God knows what that cost. Here, he suffered a major heart attack and is having 2 stents inserted. And that's what led me to think that maybe it was a homocysteine problem, and then I went back and thought, maybe it's actually B12, and then I organised testing for him. And I'm not sure how surely that shows, but there are many types of suffering, and until he was diagnosed this year, it's just another sad story. Now, methylcobalamin and hydroxocobalamin are molecules, so I'm going to go back a little bit to the beginning, and I'm not going to get too technical, but if you want to ask more technical questions, please do.
Excuse me, Allison, can you stand a little bit back from that, please?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Molecules are traditionally represented in 2 dimensions. That makes it a bit difficult to visualize them. But here is the cobalt atom. And this R is where the bond occurs, either here. This is cyanocobalamin, which you probably all know is a cyanide atom attached. This is hydroxo, which is the hydroxyl group, oxygen and hydrogen. Number 3 is the methyl group, which is carbon and hydrogen, and they all attach here, one or the other. And this is the adenosyl Hydroxocobalamin. Now to go back, does anybody recognize this remarkable person?
Dorothy
Oh, sorry, Mike.
Hodgkins.
Oh, sorry.
Dorothy Hodgkins.
Well done, yes. In 1934, she won the Nobel Prize for chemistry for her work on crystallography and defining penicillin and then vitamin B12.
Could you speak into the mic, please?
Oh, I was just told to stand back, sorry. All right, can you hear me now?
Teresa?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So, this is, people do not recognize Dorothy, then she had, her most famous student was Margaret Thatcher. And this is in 1979. And my point is there are personal stories that are linked and that work towards discoveries and work towards why things are neglected and why things are more prominent. This is it's an interesting personal note that Professor Hodgkin Dorothy wrote to Margaret. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, yes, please.
That's it.
Okay. Notes for Margaret. Object: to rethink relations with the Soviet Union on the basis that friendship is possible and would be to everyone's advantage. Trade, science, art, the lot. And Maggie kept in touch with her. And she met Gorbachev, maybe some of us remember this. She met with 6 Soviet scientists. There was a photo, she sent Dorothy photos, and that started the collaboration with the Soviet Union, now Russia, and that also advanced science and our understanding. Oh. And this, 1954, is a reproduction of a page which Dorothy Hodgkin published in Nature when she first had discovered the structure of B12. And these are her doodlings. Well, they're not doodlings, really, they're how she drew the molecule. I find it fascinating. It's just fantastic. But the molecule she mentions here that she got it from the States, and it was selenocyanate. So it was selenium and cyanide. And this molecule, she did this for the Science Museum in the 50s, and it's still there, so we can go to the Science Museum and walk around the model which she built. It's great, I think. Puts things in context and perspective, that it's there. It was known about in the 50s, it was important in the 30s, and we're still struggling today. We're still struggling for recognition, and we're still struggling to get treatment. But working together and working definitely internationally will progress the way that we end up getting the cures that we need. So, these are the if anybody needs me to be more technical, please. This is hydroxocobalamin, this animation. The cobalt molecule is, the cobalt atom is here. So, it's a huge molecule. It's one of the largest. And to put that into perspective, when you do new drug research, most of the research is done on small molecules less than 500 grams per mole. These are more permeative in our digestive systems, they're more easily metabolized, and they translate to more successful drugs. Penicillin, for example, is 334 grams per mole. 500 is the number that the pharmaceutical community likes to keep under. So the hydroxyl group is oxygen and hydrogen, which ends up here. The methyl group, carbon and hydrogen, also instead ends up here. That is the only difference between the two molecules. And it's one carbon and one hydrogen and one oxygen atom. That is the only difference. But it makes a huge difference in the body. So, this slide is from a study on the pharmacokinetics of methylcobalamin. There's only been one study done in the world, and this was done by Japanese people. And this is called a plasma concentration time curve. You can see here, this is the IV dose, 500 micrograms, and this is the intramuscular dose, also 500 micrograms. The big difference, it's hard maybe to see, the little dots are quite small. This is the maximum concentration in the serum of the intramuscular dose. And this is, I have the numbers on the next page, but this is less than half, it's about 25% of the maximum plasma dose of the intravenous route. It never gets higher. And we know that if we want a cobalamin available to the tissues that need it, it has to get into our bloodstream. It has to be in the bloodstream. It has to end up in the liver, and it's stored in the liver. So then the time it takes to be excreted for both is about 144 hours. So these are the pharmacokinetic parameters after one injection. So the Tmax is the time at which maximum concentration is detected. So obviously for intravenous, that's going to be practically immediate, which is here. But for intramuscular, it's about an hour. The big difference is here and here. So the Cmax is the maximum concentration in nanograms per milliliter. You can see the difference between intravenous and intramuscular is about 25% of the intravenous, the intramuscular route. That is the maximum that goes in. And nobody knows what happens to the rest of it. Nobody's done the test. We haven't done any tests on methylcobalamin or hydroxocobalamin or cyanocobalamin. Where does it go? My opinion is it's in the extracellular spaces and eventually diffuses and gets excreted. So the half-life means how long does it take for half of the dose at that particular time to
Go down.
well, to be excreted, yeah. And it's only difference by a couple of hours, and in 4 half-lives, then the complete dose is considered to be out of the body. So this is between 5 and 6 days. And then there is no more detectable in the serum. That doesn't mean it's not in your liver and being stored in your liver, but there's no more active in your serum.
Question?
Mm-hmm.
You said some seems to have disappeared. Is it conceivable that has found its way to the liver?
Yes, of course, yes. There's passive diffusion, it can, yes.
So it might still be
We
doing
don't
you
know.
good.
It
even
could
though-
be,
Okay.
it could be, but it might not be,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
They always say that B12 is stored in the liver, but if you've got, it's like think of it as the oil in your engine. If there's a leak in your engine, the oil ends up on the floor, rather than in the sump, So it's just think it's stored in the liver and it's available, it may not be.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think one thing that the conference has highlighted is there's just not enough research has been done, so we just don't know. Maybe a lot of research points that we can work on. Excuse me, Teresa, I can't. Sorry.
Go on, take your chair and go and sit over there.
Right. The area under the curve, this means the total exposure that person. This was a group of 12 individuals, and those individuals, that was the total exposure which they had for all those 144 hours to the B12. So the intravenous was a lot higher than the intramuscular. It shows almost double. Here we have the plasma concentration time curve for hydroxocobalamin, intramuscular, and 5,000 micrograms, so a lot more. This is obviously 5 milligrams. This was from a study, because I'm not sure if you're aware, but hydroxocobalamin is used as the antidote to cyanide poisoning. Therefore, they've done a lot of pharmacokinetic studies on hydroxocobalamin in high dose, because they use high dose, 5 grams and 25 grams to to bind with the cyanide atom. So again, it's the same shape, plasma concentration time curve. After about 168 hours, it's all disappeared, been excreted. And these are total cobalamins because in this study, they don't measure one molecule. They don't measure the methyl or the hydroxyl. They can only measure the total. The half-life is similar. Obviously, these figures are huge because the dose is huge. These are standard pharmacokinetic parameters, but the more important one here is because we can't compare the doses of the half-life is the same, so that it's getting excreted at the same rate that the methylcobalamin gets excreted. So, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this book. And, this is from the homocysteine solution by Petra. So, because a lot of symptoms that are related to B12 deficiency can also be attributed to high homocysteine levels, it is important, in my opinion, to also test homocysteine, always test homocysteine levels when B12 is tested. And this is maybe the most understandable of the diagrams that I've found on the methylation pathway. And Patrick has very conveniently put a little angel to show what is good and a little devil to show what is bad. So, in my opinion, the methylcobalamin, and not just my opinion, but the methylcobalamin is the best form of B12 to take because it provides a methyl donor to detoxify or bind with, remove, lower homocysteine and homocysteine-related symptoms. The gentleman we saw at the beginning, he was having cardiac stents because of the damage to his arteries that the high homocysteine had caused. It was secondary to the B12, and it was a more immediate problem. And obviously that cost the NHS, the John Radcliffe Hospital, a lot of money for him to end up there and have those stents. Would have been a lot more practical had he, 60 years ago, been able to have B12. So as Professor Smith said this morning, these nutrients are important in stopping the homocysteine from being, from increasing in the bloodstream. Any questions?
Yeah, what's TMG again? I've just forgotten.
TMG is trimethylglycine, which is also known as betaine, and that it acts as a methyl donor. So it binds with, is the MT here? It binds here,
Yeah.
and then is converted to SAMI, and then that's beneficial. And it's actually not easy to get hold of. I've tried to get hold of it for some people, but maybe, I don't know, as a group, maybe we can, I don't know, work towards, I think you can buy them bulk, but it's not easy to buy. Like, you need it in powder form. You can't be taking 30 capsules of it. So it's more beneficial in powder form. It is sold as a supplement for athletes because it builds muscle mass, which also, as we know, is a symptom of B12 deficiency. Patients lose muscle mass. So it's probably from high homocysteine, although the research hasn't been done, so who knows.
Yep.
So here we go. This is how easy it is to get and to give vitamin B12 injections. These apparently are famous women, but I had never heard of them before. This was in that very well-respected medical journal called the Daily Mail, only in the last couple of months. This woman is, she's Rita Ora, a singer, and this woman is Emily Rose. Anyway, apparently they couldn't live without their B12, and this woman is their hairdresser, not their tattoo artist. And she comes around to do their hair, and also gives them a jab up the bottom.
Yeah. It looks as though she's giving subcutaneous there.
Yeah, it definitely is subcutaneous, yes. So, when the Daily Mail wrote the article, they also mentioned that Madonna swears by these, Justin Bieber gets them regularly, Victoria Beckham relied on them throughout her pregnancy and got her injections regularly, Katy Perry, and famously, I think from the PAS website, we know that Simon Cowell, he gets them. And apparently Simon encouraged Karen Brady to get injections, so now she gets them as well. So the gentleman from the beginning, here he is. I visited him on yesterday morning actually, and here he is swabbing his tummy. He's holding the syringe, giving himself the subcutaneous methylcobalamin injection, and now he's very happy. So, in terms of visitability of methylcobalamin, I have the notes from a research paper here. They actually have done a lot of research on it. This is methylcobalamin in pure crystal form. There's no liquid in here, it's just the powder. They have autoclaved methylcobalamin in a saline solution and has not shown any degradation whatsoever. It can be autoclaved, so you don't need to keep your stuff in the fridge or even freeze it. Heat is not a problem, it's light. When it's stored in amber, this reduces the degradation by 67%. And what we typically do in labs is we wrap everything in tin foil that can be affected by light. And methylcobalamin does suffer photolysis, which is degradation in light. But the latest research that came out not very long ago, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the paper with me, it does say that when it dissociates, it actually dissociates to hydroxocobalamin. So it's not all bad. If you have lost a little bit, it's only because, that maybe needs to be supported, but it is only because it has gone to hydroxy. That's not bad. We have also experimented with a transdermal approach. And I'm not sure about this. We need to do more tests. We haven't done any serum tests after the transdermal application. But depending on your body surface area, you can get as many as 8 milligrams. And we know that it's a high dermal absorption formula, and we know that it does get absorbed because